So I decided to make this video on the split path because most people have trouble figuring out why their position jumps whenever they have a split road. And it's quite simple. Most of the time, people will start at the start line and continue going, building their path, like just one path all the way from the start towards the end and looping back, and then they'll go ahead and make the split road separately as a different group. That's not an issue with, but the issue is when the game reads your positions. Because you're constantly on one path, it considers that path a certain position. So whenever you leave that path, say, and you split here to the right, um, then it causes an error because then it thinks this is a completely new path and whatnot. So then when you leave this path and rejoin that one again, your position will probably jump again or not. I don't remember. But I know when you split here originally, it will jump because you're technically on a new path. And since this new path doesn't have a lap check 0, and since you can only have one in the game, you can have one, yeah, I think only one. I don't remember two. But yeah, since you split it, it would assume this is a new path that it's going on. And then when you rejoin this one, it won't count your position, I believe, in relation to like the rest of the AIs that stayed on this path. And that's because when you started the track, you cross the start line, which initiates the original position counting. So when you got off of it, you no longer were on this start. You didn't you didn't cross this start line. You started a new path that doesn't have one. So that's why your position would jump. Okay, so the way to go about it and how to make sure you do the correct split path is that when you get to the point where you're going to split your paths, like such in this case in Yoshi Valleys, you're going to want to split to the left and to the right as separate groups. So if we look at here, path, the group path 0, your first group, it comes over here, and then group 1 is on the left and group 6 is on the right. Okay, so it splits. And then when this one reaches here again, also whenever you do groups, as a rule of thumb, make sure you have 2 lap paths in said group as a minimum amount. And I say that because if you pay attention here, it takes 2 lap paths to create a segment area, a section, where the game knows what the boundaries are as far as the sides, the top, and the top, which I consider the ceiling, and the floor, the bottom. So if you make a new group with just one lap path, it may cause an issue, and I've had it happen before, where I have had only one lap path in a group, but it's caused an issue. So to avoid that, avoid any potential issues with that, make sure you have 2 lap paths in said group, any given group as a minimum, So like right here, you can see everything between those 2 lap paths, that's the group. Okay, um, so continuing on, if you do this method that once you're split, you can put any amount of lap paths that you need per your split road or whatever. As you can see, the left side uses 2 and the right side uses 4 lap paths. So in order for the game to also kind of check whose position is up, who's ahead, who's behind, and all that, they use checkpoints. Okay, so if you check here, they have a checkpoint of 2, and then when you get further on the right side, here is a checkpoint as 2 as well. So even though, you know, this one's shorter and this one's longer, when you cross that checkpoint, it would know who is ahead and who is behind, you know. So obviously the checkpoint right here is checkpoint 1, so it would know. And it does a good idea as well. It's between non-checkpoints, but when you have split roads, it's a good idea if your split roads are long enough that you should have two of the same checkpoints for such, you know, issue to like consider who's ahead and who's not. And then if you continue looking at this road, if we go to path 2, it splits again. You see, splits to the left, and then split. Path 3 does another group of 2 lap paths. And if you can tell, this one has a checkpoint of 3. So even though this is 2, this is 3, and this group does not. It's okay, it's perfectly fine. You can have groups without checkpoints. Your checkpoints, like I said, they're key positions of where you want certain areas to not be cut off or cheated, you know, just so that the AI knows the positions and whatnot. So if you look at the next group right here where it splits to the left, this road has another checkpoint. So it's the same, checkpoint 3, checkpoint 3, checkpoint 2, okay? And then when they go into the 5th group, right here where they joined again, as you can tell, it's a completely different group. Keep that in mind when you do your split paths and you're gonna go back into the same road. It has to be a completely different group. It cannot be like, let's say, how you had it originally built from start to end, and then make these part of a different group and make these part of path 0. It'll give you issues like that. So make sure it's just on a different group, okay? And so once you have that, as you can see, they also add a checkpoint here, checkpoint 4 and checkpoint 5. And this is, in this particular map, is because this map has so many roads that they have to consider all the other like positions when they count, you know, the other routes. So if you go to position 7, this is right here on the right side where it comes and it splits. Again, it has 2 lap paths as a minimum in that group. When you go to position 8, you're going in this under that road, but this is checkpoint 3. So see, you got checkpoint 2 and checkpoint 3 right here being checked on, which is comparing it to this one and this road up here, and there's also another road up here that has checkpoint 3 as well. So that's kind of more or less why we strongly recommend using checkpoints, especially if you have like really long split roads. You can have them, you know. This is one way of definitely doing your split roads with where they're split and they're not equal amounts. Okay, and I want to make that clear because the next method uses what I want to call the twin road, the twin method, which is in like toads turnpikes. You have obviously a split road as well. So path 0 goes from the start up to this point before it splits into 2. Alright? See? You can tell right away. And group 1 is on the primary road, while group 5 is on the side. That's what becomes the anti-gravity road section. The reason why they did what I call the twin method is because, and I believe because it's of the spawning position. Okay, the respawn positions, as we know, lap paths have the spawn position in the center of them. Okay, so this lap path covers mostly the main road. Okay, and then this one on the side of it covers the anti-gravity section with its spawn point being placed on the road. So it wouldn't make sense to have one lap path cover both of them, and then if you got hit or whatever, fell off the road, and it needed to be respawned to be brought into the main road. Wouldn't make sense. That's why they use the twin method, which is, you put a second set of lap paths there. Now, the reason with this one is different than the other is that it has to equal the same amount of parts in its group. So if you look at path 1, it goes from 0.5 to 0.15. That's 10 lap paths in there. And then the same from path 5, it goes from 35 to 45. That's 10 lap paths exactly. So they have to be equal in parts. Okay? They have to be equal in parts for this to work. And if you have a checkpoint on, say, the four, in this case, it has 4 lap paths in its group. The fourth one, no, the fifth one actually. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the fifth one has a checkpoint. Okay, then the other one has to have a checkpoint as well on the fifth one, on the other group that you're combining. And not only that, so they have to be identical as far as their checkpoints and the number of lap paths in each group. But it has one extra step, really simple, that you should know, is when you click on the group itself, there's in the property section, it's called a group. You have to make both of these as part as one group, otherwise it would treat them as 2 individual roads, similar to Yoshi Valley, 2 individual roads with the checkpoints, but there will be issues like if you don't label them the same group. In this case, if you look at path 1, group 1, it has a group number of set to 1. If you look at path 5, it has its group number set to 1. So they're both being considered as one group when you do that. So even though you have 2 different lap path groups, the game will treat them as one. And you'll have all these positions. And this is more or less, I believe, for like when you have split paths that need individual respawn points on said paths, and you don't want to have one large one. So this is what you would do for the twin method. And then when they rejoin, obviously you can follow the same as Yoshi Valley, where the new group will be a new lap path in itself. When they rejoin, like right here, it will be a new lap path in itself. I believe there's the other side here as well. It also has the same amount. They did the same exact method as well. So just to show you how I did it, because I want to show you my custom map as well. This is Bowser's Wasteland. Inside the castle here, I have a split path area. So if we look at collision only, so we can see inside, we get up to this point, and this is path 5. And then if we go to path 6, it's the path that goes on the road and down the stairway. But there's also an alternative path that you can fall off there, which is path number 7. And it has 3 lap paths in it. Path 6 also has 3 lap paths, And as you can see, if I look at the group, I did the twin method on this one. If I look at the group, path 6 and path 7, they have the same group number. This number can be any number as long as it's the same number. I've tested it where I've given it like number 500 or number 100. It wouldn't matter as long as both of them have the same exact group number. So there's that to that. And then when it comes over here to like the outside, this is group, actually it's this one, I think. Yeah, the first point in group 8. So basically from here, goes to there. That's group 8, and then from the end of the stairs to there is group 8, and then it just keeps coming down here. I don't recall. I don't think I used checkpoints on my map. You know, but mostly I think more checkpoints are like I treat them more like areas I want to make sure people don't cut off, and so that's also like a safety measure to make sure people go as far as to that area. So yeah, another thing, you know, you guys can do is I notice sometimes people put several lap paths very close to each other, like right here, and whatnot. This is, you know, and what I would suggest is keeping your road a little bit more cleaner, because you really don't need like most of the time you really don't need 2 more respawn points here. Usually if you say, let's say you cross this lap path, fall over, Lakuta will pick you up and drop you off to the lap path usually that's ahead, the next one over. Or if you're really like on the line with this one, it'll bring you back to this one. So what you would, you know, the reason why you wouldn't want to have that many is because if you were to drive on the road, you want to make sure that you're not constantly like getting pulled back, you know, getting pulled back to this lap path. But you also don't want to leave it wide enough. Like this road is long enough. If I wouldn't have had this one, if I fell here, I could probably gain some time. If not, you know, just hypothetically speaking, gain some time if I fell off and got respawned over there to the front. So you don't want to do that. You know, you don't want to do that. So you want to play your track and then kind of figure out, oh, like this is a nice midpoint to like set a respawn point, and then that's where you will want to put your lap path, you know. So you would have different areas, you know, with a little bit more space. Curves are a little bit more trickier. What you can do with curves is just like this, for example, make it much more wider. If you know areas like right here, the player is never going to reach this area or this area, you can go ahead and make that like even wider. You get me? And then that way it covers the main road where they're driving on, and they'll never reach out of bounds areas over there. I have KCO walls right there, as you can see, and it stops them from going in that area. Same over here and whatnot. So yeah, that's just my guide and tips, I guess, on split paths. I hope it helps.